I sat in the trendy downtown cafe, hands wrapped around a coffee cup I hadn't touched, staring at the two people across from me. My parents. The word felt foreign. Wrong. Carol, my mother, smiled at me like we did this every week. Like 16 years hadn't passed since she'd driven away and left me standing in a driveway with a suitcase. "We've missed you so much, Natalie," she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. I pulled back before she could make contact. "Dennis," my father jumped in smoothly. "We saw the article about your company acquisition. $18 million. That's incredible. You've done so well for yourself." For yourself. Like they had nothing to do with it. Which was true, but hearing him say it made my jaw clench. Carol leaned forward, her voice warm and practiced. "We want to be part of your life again. We want to be a family. It's been too long." I finally found my voice. "Why now?" The question hung in the air. Carol and Dennis exchanged a glance. Some silent communication between two people who'd been divorced for 16 years but had apparently coordinated this ambush. Whitney, my older sister, sitting next to Carol, in a designer dress I recognized from Instagram, spoke up. "We've all thought about you over the years, wondered how you were doing." I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was bitter and harsh. Wondered. But never enough to actually find out. Never enough to call or write or show up at any of the foster homes I lived in. Until now. Dennis leaned forward, using that consultant voice I remembered from childhood. Reasonable. Logical. Persuasive. "We know we made mistakes, Natalie. The divorce was messy. Things happened that we regret. But we're here now. We want to make things right." I looked at each of them carefully. Carol's designer handbag probably cost more than a month of rent in my first apartment. Dennis's watch was a Rolex. Whitney's manicured nails were perfect, not a chip in sight. They all looked successful, comfortable, well-fed. Nothing like the 8-year-old girl they'd left behind. I stood up abruptly. "I need to think about this. I'll be in touch." Carol's carefully composed face showed a flash of panic. "Wait, sweetheart. We were hoping to discuss something with you. A family investment opportunity." And there it was. The real reason for this reunion. I stared at her, understanding flooding through me like ice water. "I'll be in touch," I repeated firmly. Then I walked out of that cafe without looking back. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely unlock my car. James was waiting in the driver's seat. He'd insisted on coming, on staying close even though I'd made him wait outside. "How bad?" he asked, taking in my face. I got in the passenger seat and just sat there for a moment, trying to breathe. "What did they want?" James pressed gently. I turned to look at him. My business partner, my best friend, the closest thing to family I had. "Money," I said, my voice shaking with rage and something deeper. Something that felt like that 8-year-old's pain finally having words. "They want my money. Natalie, after 16 years of nothing, 16 years of silence, they show up 2 months after the acquisition news goes public, and they want my fucking money." James's face went hard. "What did you say?" I said I'd think about it. "And will you?" I looked back at the cafe, where I could see them through the window. Heads together, probably already planning their next move. "Oh, I'll think about it," I said quietly. "I'll think about exactly what I'm going to say when I see them again." James started the car. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you." I nodded, not trusting my voice. Because what I was thinking wasn't generous or forgiving. What I was thinking was that they were about to learn a very important word. No. 16 years earlier, I was 8 years old, sitting on my bed, listening to my parents destroy each other downstairs. The screaming had been going on for months. Ever since Dad moved out. Ever since the word divorce became part of my vocabulary. I shared a room with my older sister Whitney. She was 11, old enough to understand more than I did. She sat on her bed across from me, hugging her knees, tears running down her face. Our little brother Tyler, only 5, was in his room crying. I could hear him through the wall. The screaming stopped suddenly. Footsteps on the stairs. Mum appeared in our doorway. Her face was tight, exhausted, red from crying. Pack a bag, she said to me. Just clothes and a few toys. We're leaving in an hour. Where are we going? I asked. Away from your father, just for a while. But something in her voice scared me. Something final. Whitney started packing immediately. I moved slower, confused, putting my favorite stuffed animal and some clothes into my little suitcase. An hour later, I stood in the driveway. Mum's car was running. Whitney was already in the passenger seat, her bags in the trunk. Dad's car was running too. Tyler was in his car seat, screaming and reaching for Mum, and I stood between both cars with my suitcase, looking from one parent to the other. Mom? She wouldn't look at me, kept her eyes on the steering wheel. Your father is taking you. I turned to Dad. He was standing by his car, looking angry and cornered. Dad? Your mother was supposed to take you. I can't take 2 kids, Natalie. I just can't. They started arguing again. Right there in the driveway. Over me. About me. Like I wasn't standing right there listening to every word. You take her. No, you take her. I can't handle 3 children alone. Well, neither can I. Whitney was crying in Mum's car. Tyler was screaming in Dad's. And I just stood there, invisible, with my little pink suitcase. Mum got in her car, started backing out of the driveway. Mum, wait! I ran toward her car. She didn't stop, didn't even slow down. She drove away with Whitney, and I watched them disappear around the corner. I turned to Dad. He was getting in his car. Dad, I'm right here. I'm right here. He rolled down the window, looked at me with something that wasn't love, something that looked like resentment, like I was a problem he didn't want to solve. I'm starting a new life, Natalie. I can't take care of you too. Your mother will figure something out. But she left. She already left. She'll come back. But even at 8, I knew that was a lie. He drove away. I stood in that driveway with my suitcase, watching his car disappear the same way Mum's had. They each took a kid. Mom took Whitney. Dad took Tyler. And I was left standing there like a piece of furniture neither one wanted. Mrs. Patterson from next door found me hours later. I was still standing there, waiting for someone to come back. She called someone, I don't remember who. A woman in a suit came, asked me questions I couldn't answer, took my hand, and led me to a car that wasn't my mum's or my dad's. That night, I slept in a strange bed in a strange house with strange people. That was my first foster home. The first of 6. 16 years later, I sat in my therapist's office. First time I'd been since the acquisition made me wealthy enough to afford the good therapists. The ones who didn't just nod and write notes. Tell me about your parents, Dr. Williams said. And for the first time in my adult life, I said it out loud. They left me. They each took 1 kid, and they left me for the state to raise. Dr. Williams waited, giving me space. I was 8 years old, and I stood in that driveway with a suitcase, and they both drove away. My voice cracked. I kept thinking I did something wrong, that if I'd been better, quieter, smarter, prettier, something one of them would have kept me. And now? Dr. Williams asked gently. Now they want to reconnect. Now that I have money, how does that make you feel? I looked at her directly. Like I finally get to be the one who drives away. The Johnsons were my first foster family. I was 8 years old, still waiting for Mom or Dad to come back and get me, still believing it was temporary. They had 4 other foster kids. I learned quickly to stay quiet, take up as little space as possible, never ask for anything. I lasted 8 months before the Johnsons moved to Oregon and couldn't take all of us with them. The social worker came with apologetic eyes. It's not about you, Natalie, it's just logistics. But it felt like it was about me. Everything felt like it was about me. Second placement, Mr. Raymond. A single man in his 50s who fostered teenagers for the monthly check. He wasn't mean, just absent. I could go days without him saying more than a few words to me. I learned to make my own meals, do my own laundry, forge his signature on permission slips. I learned to be invisible. I lasted a year before his health failed and he couldn't foster anymore. Third placement, age 12, Margaret Sullivan. She was different, older, tired, but kind. She had 3 other foster kids and was always overwhelmed, but she tried. She noticed things the others hadn't. "You're good with computers," she said one day, watching me fix her laptop. "I like them. They make sense." "You're smart, Natalie. Really smart. Use that. Build something they can't take away from you." Those words stuck with me. I threw myself into school. Straight A's weren't enough. I needed perfect grades, perfect attendance, perfect behavior. I taught myself to code using library books and free online tutorials. Spent hours at the public library because Margaret's internet was unreliable. At 14, I built my first app. A simple homework tracker for foster kids who changed schools frequently. It was clunky, but it worked. Margaret was proud. She showed it to her social worker, who showed it to someone at a local non-profit. At 15, I built something better. A resource locator for foster youth, where to find free meals, tutoring, counseling, legal help. A non-profit gave me a small grant, $2,000. I'd never had money before. Real money that was mine. I saved every penny. At 16, I applied for emancipation. Margaret supported it, understanding that I needed independence more than another temporary home. The judge looked at my grades, my part-time job doing tech support, my savings account. "You're more mature than most adults I know," he said, signing the papers. I was legally free at 16, legally alone. I got a tiny efficiency apartment, worked part-time, took community college classes. At 18, I transferred to State University on a full academic scholarship. That's where I met James in an advanced coding class. He came from a normal family, a loving family. He talked about his parents and siblings like they were actual people he liked. I didn't know what to do with that. "What about you?" he asked one day over coffee. "Where's your family?" "Don't have one. Everyone has someone." I looked at him directly. "Not everyone." Eventually, I told him the abbreviated version. The divorce. The driveway. The foster homes. James stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. "They just left you? Both of them?" Like I was a piece of furniture neither one wanted. He didn't know what to say. Nobody ever did. But James didn't disappear. Didn't treat me differently. He just became my family, invited me to holidays at his parents' house. His mum hugged me and I went rigid, not knowing how to accept it. At 22, James and I launched our startup in his parents' garage. We lived on ramen and hope. "If this works," James said one night, exhausted from coding, "if we actually make money, what will you do with it?" I didn't even have to think. Prove I never needed them. Prove I was worth keeping all along. James looked sad. "Natalie, you know it wasn't about your worth, right? Then what was it about? Their weakness, their selfishness, their failure." I wanted to believe that. Some days I almost did. But late at night, I still heard my 8-year-old self asking, why didn't they want me? The app took off faster than we expected. ConnectSpace, our remote collaboration platform with AI integration, went from 0 to 500,000 users in 18 months. By the time I was 24, we had an acquisition offer, $18 million. After everyone took their cut, I cleared $4.2 million, from foster kid to millionaire. The business press loved the story. Articles everywhere. From foster care to fortune. They detailed everything: my parents' names, the abandonment, the 6 foster homes, the scholarships, the startup. One article quoted me, "I learned early that the only person you can count on is yourself. That became my greatest strength." The article went viral. My face was everywhere. And somewhere, Carol Morrison saw it. So did Dennis Morrison. And Whitney. And suddenly, people who'd known them started asking questions. "What about your other daughter? Where was Natalie all these years?" The social pressure built. But more than that, they saw the number. $18 million. They did the math and decided their abandoned daughter was finally worth knowing. The email came through my company contact form. "Natalie, this is your mother, Carol. I saw the article. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. Whitney and I would love to reconnect. Please call me. I've missed you so much. Love, Mum. I stared at that email for an hour. 16 years of silence. And now, right after the world found out I had money, she was proud of me. She missed me. She loved me. I showed it to James. What do I do? He looked at me carefully. That's up to you. But remember, they didn't earn the right to be part of this. I knew he was right. But that 8-year-old girl in the driveway wanted to hear them say they were sorry. Wanted to hear that it wasn't her fault. So against James's advice, I agreed to meet them. I chose a public cafe for the meeting. Neutral ground. Easy to leave if I needed to. Carol and Dennis arrived together, which surprised me. 16 years divorced, but coordinating this reunion like a business strategy. Whitney came with them, looking nervous. They performed warmth like actors in a play. Carol tried to hug me. I stepped back. It's so good to see you, she said, her smile too bright. We sat, ordered coffee, nobody drank. Carol showed me photos on her phone. This is Whitney's wedding last year. This is Tyler's college graduation. This is all of us at Christmas. I looked at the images. Carol, Dennis, Whitney, and Tyler, together. Smiling. A family. You stayed in touch, I said. Even after the divorce. For the kids, Dennis said smoothly. We wanted them to have both parents. The words hit like a slap. They wanted Whitney and Tyler to have both parents. Just not me. How have you been? Carol asked. Like we were catching up after a brief absence, instead of 16 years. Fine. Your article was so inspiring. We had no idea you'd become so successful. You could have known, I said quietly. You could have looked. Carol's smile faltered. We didn't know where you were. Yes, you did. The state knew. Social services knew. You could have found me if you'd tried. Silence. Dennis cleared his throat. We made mistakes, Natalie. We were young, overwhelmed. The divorce was destroying us. I was 8. We know. And we regret how things happened. But we're here now. We want to make things right. After an hour of surface conversation and performed regret, Carol finally got to the point. Natalie, we'd like to invest in your next venture. We believe in you. We want to be part of your success. There it was. The real reason. How much? I asked. Dennis and Carol exchanged looks. We were thinking of a family investment fund, Dennis said. We pool resources. Support your next startup together. How much? I repeated. Carol named the number. 500,000. For 30% equity in whatever you build next. I did the math instantly. They wanted to give $500,000, which they probably didn't have, for 30% of my next company. Based on ConnectSpace's trajectory, that 30% could be worth tens of millions in a few years. And if I say no, Whitney spoke up for the first time. Natalie, we're family. We should build wealth together. Support each other. Family. That word again. I looked at each of them. Where were you when I was in foster care? No one answered. Where were you when I was studying for the SAT with library books because I couldn't afford test prep? Carol's perfectly made-up eyes showed discomfort. Where were you when I was working 2 jobs to pay for community college? We didn't know, Dennis started. You didn't look. You didn't try. You didn't care. That's not fair, Whitney said. They told me the court decided custody, that they didn't have a choice. I laughed, sharp and bitter. They lied. There was no court decision. They each took 1 kid and left me in a driveway. Whitney looked at Carol, confusion and dawning realization on her face. Carol looked away. I stood up. I need to think about this. Carol's composure cracked. Wait, there's something else. Tyler has student loans. Whitney and her husband are buying a house. We thought you might want to help family. Help family. After 16 years of nothing, they wanted me to pay Tyler's loans and fund Whitney's house. I'll be in touch, I said. Carol reached for my arm. Natalie, please. I know what you need, I interrupted. You need money. You saw the article, and you need my money. Dennis stood. We're your parents. We deserve. You deserve nothing, I said quietly. Then I walked out. James was waiting in the car. Well? They want $500,000 for 30% of my next company, plus money for Tyler's loans and Whitney's house. James's jaw clenched. What did you say? That I'd think about it. And will you? I looked back at the cafe where my biological family sat, probably already calculating their next move. I'm going to see them one more time, I said. But first, I need to know the truth about their finances. I called Leonard Price, my attorney, that night. I need you to investigate Carol and Dennis Morrison. Financials, debts, everything. Are you sure? Leonard asked. I need to know what I'm dealing with. 1 week later, Leonard called me back. Your mother is $200,000 in debt. Credit cards, mortgage. Her second husband died 2 years ago and left her with nothing but bills. My stomach tightened. Your father's consulting business is failing. He's living off credit. His second wife left him last year and took half of what little he had. And Whitney? Her husband lost his job 6 months ago. They're struggling. I sat with this information, feeling oddly calm. They're broke, Leonard said. All of them. They see you as their way out. Thank you, Leonard. After I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. They hadn't come back because they loved me. They'd come back because they needed me, and I was about to teach them a very important lesson. I arranged a second meeting. Same cafe. 1 week later. This time, I brought Leonard and James with me. Carol, Dennis, and Whitney arrived looking hopeful, eager. They thought I was going to say yes. I didn't sit down. I stood at the head of the table with Leonard and James flanking me like bodyguards. I know about your debts, I said. All of them. Carol's face went pale. I know about the $200,000 you owe in credit cards and mortgage payments. I know your second husband left you with nothing. Dennis shifted uncomfortably. I know your consulting business is failing, that your wife left you, that you're living off credit you can't repay. Whitney looked down at her hands. I know your husband lost his job, that you're struggling to make ends meet. Natalie, Carol started. I also know about the story you've been telling people, that you lost custody of me in the divorce, that it was the court's decision. Whitney's head snapped up. Mum said. Mum lied, I said, looking directly at Carol. There was no court decision. They each chose which kid to keep, and they chose not to keep me. Carol's eyes filled with tears. We were overwhelmed. We made a mistake. I was 8 years old, I said, my voice steady despite the emotion churning inside me. You were adults. You made a choice. You stood in that driveway, and you each drove away with the kid you wanted. And you left me. We thought the other would take you, Dennis tried. You didn't think about me at all. You thought about yourselves, about your new lives, about how much easier it would be without the extra burden. The word burden hung in the air. Whitney was crying now. I didn't know, Mum always said. I know what she said. I know what you both told people. That you lost me. That it wasn't your fault. I looked at Carol and Dennis. But I was there. I remember. Carol reached for me. Please, Natalie. We're sorry. Truly sorry. We were young and stupid, and we made a terrible mistake. You made a choice, I corrected. Mistakes are accidents. You deliberately left me behind. Dennis found his voice, trying to regain control. We can't change the past. But we're here now. We want to build a future. You have resources. We're family. Families help each other. And there it was. The entitlement. The audacity. You want to know what I'm going to do with my resources? I asked. Leonard handed me a folder. I opened it and slid documents across the table. I'm starting a foundation for foster children to provide laptops, educational resources, tutoring, and college scholarships. I'm seeding it with $2 million. Carol's face showed she was doing the math. $2 million that could have paid her debts. I'm also funding a legal aid service for foster youth navigating emancipation and aging out of the system. Another document. And I'm partnering with Margaret Sullivan to expand her fostering capacity so she can provide better support to kids in her care. I looked at each of them. I'm investing in the people who were there when you weren't. In the systems that raised me when you chose not to. What about us? Whitney asked, her voice small. What about family? James is my family, I said, gesturing to my business partner. Margaret is my family. The foster siblings I stayed in touch with are my family. I paused, letting it sink in. Family isn't blood, it's who shows up. Carol's tears turned angry. So you're punishing us? After we came here, humbled ourselves. You didn't humble yourselves. You saw a payday. My voice was calm, which somehow made the words hit harder. You saw that your abandoned daughter made good, and you wanted a piece of it. You don't get one. Dennis stood up, his face red. You're going to regret this. We're your parents. We have rights. Leonard stepped forward. You have no rights. No legal claim to her money. No moral authority. And if you continue to harass my client, we'll pursue legal action. Carol tried one more time, desperation creeping into her voice. Natalie, please. We're sorry. We made mistakes. Can't we just start over? Give us a chance. I looked at her directly. No. The word landed like a stone in still water. No, you can't have my money. No, you can't be part of my life. No, you don't get to call yourselves my parents. I picked up the folder and walked toward the door. Stopped. Turned back. I spent 16 years wondering what was wrong with me, why I wasn't enough for you to keep. My voice cracked slightly, but I pushed through. I know now it was never about me. It was about you. Your selfishness. Your weakness. Your choices. Carol was sobbing now. Whitney looked devastated. Dennis just looked angry. I've built a good life. Not because of you, but despite you. I opened the door. And that's all you get to know about me. I walked out into the sunlight. James and Leonard followed. Behind me, I heard Carol crying, but I didn't look back. I drove straight to Margaret Sullivan's house after the meeting. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. James offered to drive, but I needed to do something, control something. Margaret answered the door in her worn cardigan, her face lighting up when she saw me. Natalie! What a surprise! 2 teenage foster kids peered at me from the living room. Curious. Can we talk? I asked. We sat in her kitchen, the same one where she taught me to make spaghetti sauce from scratch when I was 13. Your parents contacted you, she said. Not a question. How did you know? I saw the article. I knew they would. She poured us both tea. What did they want? Money. They wanted to invest in my next company. And for me to pay for Tyler's student loans and Whitney's house. Margaret's expression didn't change. She'd seen too much in her years of fostering to be shocked. What did you say? I said no. I told them about the foundation. What foundation? I pulled out the documents Leonard had prepared. I'm starting a foundation for foster kids. $2 million to start. Laptops, tutoring, college scholarships, legal aid for emancipation. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. Real ones. Natalie, that's incredible. I want you to be part of it. Help me run the educational programs. Expand your fostering so you can take better care of the kids. She put her hand over mine. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. You were there when they weren't. You taught me that I was worth something even when I felt like garbage nobody wanted. Margaret squeezed my hand. You were always worth something. I just reminded you. One of the teenagers, a girl about 15, appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Sullivan, is it true? Are you really starting a foundation for kids like us? I looked at her, saw myself at that age, lost and trying to hide it. Yes. 4 kids, exactly like us. Nobody really thinks about us, she said quietly. I think about you, I said. I'll always think about you, because I was you. After I left Margaret's, James and I drove in silence for a while. How do you feel? He finally asked. I don't know yet. You were amazing in there, the way you stood up to them. I've been practicing that conversation in my head for 16 years. Did it feel how you thought it would? I considered the question. No, I thought I'd feel triumphant, powerful, like I'd won something. And you don't? I just feel sad. Sad that they're who they are. Sad that I wasted so many years wondering if I was the problem. James pulled into a parking lot and turned to face me, You know you weren't the problem, right? You know their choice to abandon you says everything about them and nothing about you. Logically, yes. But emotionally, I looked out the window. Emotionally, there's still an 8-year-old inside me who thinks if she'd just been better, quieter, smarter, prettier, something they would have kept her. That 8-year-old deserves to know the truth. That she was perfect exactly as she was. That she deserved parents who fought for her. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I know. James pulled me into a hug. They don't deserve you. They never did. And the fact that you're using your success to help other kids instead of hoarding it or spending it on revenge, that proves you're 10 times the person they'll ever be. That night, I lay in bed unable to sleep. I kept replaying the meeting. Carol's tears, Dennis's anger, Whitney's confusion. Part of me felt guilty. They were struggling financially, and I had millions. But a larger part, the part that had survived 6 foster homes and put herself through college, knew that giving them money wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't make them better parents retroactively. It wouldn't erase 16 years of abandonment. It wouldn't make them love me. They didn't want a daughter. They wanted a bank account. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Natalie, this is Whitney. Can we talk? Just you and me? I stared at the message for a long time. Whitney was a victim in this too. In some ways. She'd been 11 when they split us up. She'd believed the lies Carol told her. But she'd also had both parents. Had grown up with privilege and comfort while I was shuffled between foster homes. I typed back, "What do you want to talk about?" "The truth. I need to hear your side, please." I hesitated, my finger hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed, "Coffee. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. Same. Cafe." Maybe Whitney deserved to know what really happened. Maybe she was the one family member who could actually hear it. Or maybe this was another manipulation. I'd find out tomorrow. I closed my eyes and thought about that 8-year-old standing in the driveway. "You survived," I whispered to her. "You survived, and you built something beautiful. And nobody can take that away." For the first time in 16 years, I almost believed it. Whitney arrived at the cafe alone, looking nervous. She ordered coffee with shaking hands and sat across from me. "Thank you for meeting me," she said quietly. I waited, saying nothing. "Mum told me the court gave you to the state. That she and Dad fought for you, but the judge said it was better for you to go into foster care." "And you believed that?" Whitney looked down. "I was 11. I didn't know any better. And then years passed, and it became this thing we didn't talk about. This uncomfortable truth that just existed. Except it wasn't truth. It was a lie. I know that now." She looked up, tears in her eyes. "After you left the other day, I confronted Mum. Really confronted her. She finally admitted what happened. That she chose to take me and leave you." "And how does that make you feel?" Whitney's face crumpled. "Horrified. Ashamed. I've been living this privileged life while you were in foster care. I went to private school, had everything I wanted. And you had nothing," I finished. "I'm so sorry, Natalie. I should have looked for you, should have asked more questions. You were a child. I was 11. Then 12. Then 15. Then 20. At some point, I became an adult who could have reached out and chose not to. I appreciated her honesty at least." "Why are you here?" "Whitney? Because you're my sister. And I want to know you. Not for money or favors or anything else. Just because." I studied her face, looking for deception. Saw only guilt and genuine regret. "It's too late for us to be sisters. We're strangers who share DNA. I know, but maybe we don't have to stay strangers." I thought about it, about the anger I'd carried, about the little girl who'd watched Whitney drive away in Mum's car. "I can't trust you yet," I said finally. "Maybe not ever. I understand. And I can't have a relationship with you if it means having one with Carol and Dennis." Whitney nodded. "I'm not asking you to. What they did was unforgivable. I'm still processing it myself." "Are you still living with Mom?" "No. I moved out after our conversation. I can't look at her the same way. That surprised me. We sat in silence for a moment. The foundation you're starting, Whitney said, for foster kids. That's amazing. It's necessary. Could I volunteer? Help somehow? I know I don't deserve. Don't, I interrupted. Don't make this about redemption or easing your guilt. If you want to help, help because those kids deserve it, not because it makes you feel better about the past. Whitney absorbed that. You're right. I'm sorry. I sighed. Send me your contact information. If positions open up, I'll consider it. But I'm not making promises. Thank you. She started to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, I think Dad was right about one thing. You did incredibly well for yourself. But not in the way he meant it. You didn't succeed times despite times them, though you did. You succeeded because of who you are. Smart, driven, resilient. That was always you. After she left, I sat there alone with my coffee. James texted. How did it go? Better than expected. Still complicated. Want company? Always. He arrived 20 minutes later, and we walked through the city, not talking much, just being together. That evening, I sat at my desk and finalized the foundation paperwork. The Natalie Morrison Foundation for Foster Youth. $2 million to start. Programs for education, legal aid, life skills, mental health support. Everything I'd needed and didn't have. Everything those kids deserved. Margaret would run the educational programs. We'd hire social workers, counselors, lawyers who specialized in youth advocacy. We'd provide laptops to every kid who needed one, college scholarships, emergency funds for kids aging out of the system. I signed the final documents and sent them to Leonard. Then I opened my email and started writing. Not to Carol or Dennis. They'd said enough, and so had I. But to the reporter who'd written the original article about my success. I'd like to do a follow-up piece. I wrote, about what I'm doing with the acquisition money, about the foundation, about giving back to the community that raised me when my biological family chose not to. The article came out 2 weeks later. Tech entrepreneur Natalie Morrison launches $2M Foundation for Foster Youth. It detailed everything. The foundation, the programs, Margaret's involvement, and it included one quote from me. Family isn't who shares your blood, it's who shows up. The foster care system showed up for me. Now I'm showing up for them. The article went viral again. Donations poured into the foundation from people I'd never met. Foster kids reached out, thanking me, telling me their stories. Social workers called, asking how they could partner with us. And Carol sent one final email. I see what you're doing, using your success to make us look bad. You're vindictive and cruel, and I regret ever having you. I read it once, then deleted it. Because her regret didn't hurt anymore. I'd spent 16 years believing I wasn't worth keeping. Spent 16 years carrying that rejection like a stone in my chest. But I knew now it was never about my worth. It was always about their weakness, their selfishness, their failure. I was worth keeping, worth loving, worth fighting for. They just weren't strong enough to do it. 3 months later, I stood in a room full of foster kids at the foundation's first event. Margaret was there, James and his family, Leonard, Whitney, who'd been volunteering quietly and proving herself trustworthy, but not Carol, not Dennis, not Tyler. They'd made their choice 16 years ago, and I'd finally made mine. A 15-year-old girl approached me, nervous and hopeful. Is it true you were in foster care too? 6 different homes from age 8 to 18. And you really made it, actually made it? I looked at her directly. I did, and you will too. Not because it's easy, it's not, but because you're stronger than you know. She smiled, and I saw myself in her eyes. That night, driving home, I thought about 8-year-old me standing in that driveway. I wished I could go back and tell her, you're going to be okay, better than okay. You're going to build a life so good that when they come back, you'll have the strength to say no. I'd finally said that word. No to their manipulation. No to their fake apologies. No to carrying their guilt. No to believing I wasn't enough. And in saying no to them, I'd said yes to myself. Yes to healing. Yes to chosen family. Yes to using my pain to help others. Yes to finally being free. I pulled into my driveway, my home, that I'd bought with money I'd earned, and sat for a moment in the silence. Then I smiled, because I'd done it. I'd survived. I'd thrived. I'd won, not by becoming like them, but by becoming everything they weren't: kind, generous, present, enough, always enough.